What inspired you to start GalaxEye, and can you just explain your origin story?
So we were inside the SpaceX facility for a month, and that's where our fascination for space began.
And how crucial or critical it is to have space tech companies being fully owned and operated in India?
Oh, I think it's very critical, right? And space as a sector, first of all, is very close to national security. It's not just an economic sector. It's a very strategic sector.
India, at one point of time when it was in war with Pakistan or when it was fighting terrorism, it was denied GPS.
Yeah.
It was denied synthetic aperture radar imagery.
What do Hyperloop pods, Elon Musk's SpaceX, and a bunch of IIT Madras grads have in common? The answer? GalaxEye. In a country where space tech has long been synonymous with ISRO, a startup is building the world's first multi-sensor satellite, applying AI to space data and pushing national security into the age of real-time intelligence. On this episode of PointBreak, we sit down with Bengaluru-based GalaxEye co-founders Pranit Mehta and Denill Chawda to talk about building during COVID, dealing with broken regulations, and why they have refused to take the easy route of going global. This is not just a space startup. It's a bet on India's deep tech future. So let's get into it. To begin with, as part of IIT alumnus, starting a deep tech startup in India, what inspired you to start GalaxEye, and can you just explain your origin story?
Sure. I think it's a very organic story. So good thing to start with. Right, first of all, glad to be here. So I think it all started when we met at IIT Madras. So all of us come from very different backgrounds, different parts of the country. We just happened to be at the campus in the same year, right? And this goes back to 2017, wherein Suyash, who's one of our co-founders, our CEO, he started the Hyperloop team, right? It's called Aishkar Hyperloop. And that was simply to participate in a competition organized by Elon Musk, where student teams were to build Hyperloop prototypes and test it in SpaceX's facility in the US. So we said, hey, if there's a team in India that could do it, that should be a team at IIT Madras, right? There's so much engineering that happens, and why not? So we got together, set up that team. Eventually in 2019, we reached the finals of the competition, and we finished as the best debutant there. Right? So we were inside the SpaceX facility for a month, and that's where our fascination for space began. Right? So when we were there at SpaceX, it was very interesting to see how a private entity could build rockets of that scale and operate facilities that we couldn't imagine of. Right? And as students in second and third year of education, it was pure fascination back then. Right? If we had something to do in space, we'd love to do it. We came back, and then the question was, okay, what next? Right? So there was one of the conversations that we distinctly remember having, right? It said, if you're anyway building Hyperloop prototypes, right, why wouldn't you, just launch satellites into space? Why do you want moving rockets, right? Why can't you have a stationary infrastructure and just launch it to space, which could just act like a railgun and shoot it up, right? And over time, we realized that we could do it. It was just capital intensive, right? And that's how we realized, okay, you know what? It's not tech first. Let's understand problems and see if there's solutions we could build for it. Because at the end of the day, we were people who loved engineering problems. So we started exploring the market, talking around to people. Some of us graduated, joined back jobs. And that's where a problem struck, right? So one of the tasks that Suyash had. So post-graduation, he used to work at a large corporate research firm. And there he was tasked to assess the damage after a forest fire for some gas pipelines. Now, how do you do that, right? The incident has occurred. Forest fires have happened. Damage is done. But how do you know how much damage has occurred? And how much of it is because of the forest fire, or was it existent damage? The only way to do it is satellite imagery. Right? Now, that was the genesis of GalaxEye. So we said, if you were to use imagery data, do you have enough and the right options available? So we went on to explore the market and figured out a very specific problem statement, which we'll talk about in more detail. Right? And that's how we got together, phrasing one problem at a time. And yeah, I think now we're at the nail to solve that problem.
Also, after doing Hyperloop, building things for space came a bit naturally to us as well. Because when you're doing Hyperloop, you are actually building for vacuum conditions. So we had already built battery systems. We had already built control systems from scratch. We have already built carbon fiber structures for that Hyperloop pod. And these are also few of the critical elements which go into satellite as well. And in both of these scenarios, you have to develop it for vacuum conditions and temperature variations as well. So it also was a natural, domain to go into. And as Pranit was mentioning, there was a clear use case which we identified. It was more on the data side. The business and the use case was more on the data side. But what we also figured is that if you want to excel in those businesses, you need to control the quality of the data. And to control the quality of the data, you need sensors, high quality sensors as well. And to control the quality of the sensor, best way to develop it on yourself, right? You cannot just take few critical hardware off the shelf, assemble them and just shoot it to space in terms of sensors, right? You have to design it for those conditions to achieve those qualities. And we have already developed few hardwares for vacuum conditions. Why not to do it for space as well? So that was also a motivation to go into the hardware domain of the business.
Got it. And this was at a time when, say, space tech industry was just starting out, right? Like private players getting into it. So didn't you guys anticipate you can fail at this, or what are the problems that you can have in the future? But even then, you guys took the risk of getting into this.
I think that, let's just call it blind faith. That's what kept us going, right? If you think about it, space in India has always been linked to ISRO. There are hardly players that have existed, less than 5 to be precise, before the privatization came into the picture, right? Now, with the privatization coming in today, you have about 250 space startups. And in our context, we were right at the brink. So we were founded in 2021, right? And all through COVID, when we were at home, this is what we were doing. So it was a time when we were just out of education, had a couple of years of exposure here and there. And what did we have to lose, right? This was the time to build for space. There was policy, there was a problem to solve. We had the right technical capability, and we as a team had worked with each other. Right, and all we needed was to just bring these things together. So I think stars were aligning very well to do it, and there was no reason not to do it. Honestly, that's how it was.
Yeah, I think I would say it in the same. I would say the same thing that for us again, we all of us were kind of people who would not just go into doing traditional jobs or go into traditional businesses because they are established and everything. We were, after doing Hyperloop, we were more into building things from scratch, and space gave us that opportunity where you can build things from scratch in India for India. And at that point of time, as Pranit said, there were not many startups in 2021. And privatization was just kicking in with in space getting formed, right? So it was a very, very nice domain where things are getting kick-started, and we get that opportunity of building things from scratch. So I think that was one of our motivations to just go into that domain.
Got it. And when you started off or till now, how has the investments been? Who has been backing you guys on, say, in the financial front and also on the strategic front?
So we've been very fortunate like that. So our earliest backers have been Special Invest, and they've backed us through every funding round that we've done till date, which is 3 rounds, pre-seed, seed and Series A. So we've managed to get in good investors like Special Invest. We have Mela Ventures, Infosys, right? They've made a strategic investment. We have a firm called Mount Tech Growth Fund, which is Kavach, right? It's a fund that is, let's say, driven by the former Defense Secretary of India, Dr. Ajay Kumar. He operates the fund. We have IdeaForge that have strategically invested in us. So, and a bunch of other angels that have also supported, right? So we've managed to get a good mix of investors throughout. And these are people who've not supported us with the pure financial mindset, right? It's not something that you'd see that, you know what, I'm putting in to have a particular ROI. These are people who came in for the people that we are, for the tech that we're building, and the potential that the sector has. And so that patience, that understanding, I think we've been very fortunate to have people like them come and back us. And we came in with nothing. Right, we had an idea, we had the passion, and time and again they keep coming, questioning us, they keep guiding us and saying, hey, you know what, this is what you should be doing next. And I think that's been a great push in getting us to where we are today.
And if you see our major investors, people like Special, they had a history of putting money into deep techs. So they really knew what deep tech is about. Where you just don't go into getting ROI on your second, third, or fourth year, right? They understand that it takes time to develop these, technologies, and then after that you would see some, progress there. And for our other investors also, Mount Tech, it's a very defense-heavy fund, and so it's a very defense-heavy fund, and they also they understand defense technologies, the criticalities of it. People like Infosys, who are the OG startup of India, they understand how startup grows. People like Mela Ventures, they have made things from scratch. They understand what all difficulties a founder would have while going into this journey. So it's a really great help that we get from all of our fund managers. Yeah.
But the notion of, like, say right now, the recent conversation of how Piyush Goyal said that we're not having enough, we're not funding enough deep tech startups, or we're not having that much of it. But what do you think? I mean, is it true, or do you see a change?
I think it's a matter of the lens that you look at from, right? If you think about the kind of deep tech that we're doing, it is brilliant. Right, in our country, the problem is that it is in silos and pockets. So you wouldn't find, let's say, someone from a tier 2 city coming and speaking of a story that, hey, I have this person that I look up to who built ABC stuff, right? For us, because we are most impacted by, like he mentioned, 10-minute deliveries, right? That's what we're most impacted about. That's what we speak about the most. And hence, that's what's garnered the most attention. So it's partially true, but it's also about the perspective. So it's not like deep tech has not happened, but as a community, as a country, we've not, let's say, taken it to that pedestal yet, right? In making it a talk of the town. And that's something that will come in as we go along. It's also about the maturity of the industry. For example, things like supermarkets and groceries have existed for decades. Things like drones and satellites, it's only been a short while, and we're only seeing a few success stories now. So IdeaForge came in, we had Aether getting listed, and all of these are success stories that now are getting that attention that they deserved all along. So that is a trend that's coming in, and that will change certainly.
But you see that investments are there, right? I mean, there are investors backing deep tech startups.
I think now we see that. Definitely.
Yes.
Now is the time where we see more and more people are taking a shot at deep tech investments. I'm not sure if that was the case 3 or 5 years before. And that is mostly because people have seen the success of Aether, people have seen success of IdeaForge. And for IdeaForge and Aether, it would have been a very difficult journey because they have been in this domain for 7 to 10 years, and after that they have been successful. They are going IPO now at this point of time. But what they really set up is a stage for deep tech to be successful in India. And I think because of those guys, we are now here talking about deep tech companies coming more and more. So I would say I would agree with Piyush Goel sir on that point, that we still don't have too many tech startups. But I would say that many startups are coming up. They are on their initial stages, and probably in next 3 to 4 years, we would see most of these tech startups would coming up and being there in that ecosystem, and making their way in that ecosystem. Few examples. There's a startup called Ultraviolet who are making super bikes. There's a startup called Uravu Labs who would make water from air. All going into different kind of technologies, right? There are many defense-based startups who are working on semiconductors. So they design their own semiconductor and fabricate it, and we are using it. For example, IIT Madras has a startup which is working on Shakti processor. It is designed in India for India, right? So we are going all on in these kind of domains, and it's just a matter of time when they would be, getting in this ecosystem. But I would say right now they are in a very nascent stage. All of us, majority of the startups are more in the nascent stage of their journey. That's why we don't see them.
Got it. And how crucial or critical it is to have space tech companies being fully owned and operated in India?
Oh, I think it's very critical, right? And let's just say very underappreciated. The reason I'd put that is space as a sector, first of all, is very close to national security. It's not just an economic sector. Yes, economics are important, but it's a very strategic sector. Now, unlike a fintech or let's say a D2C or a health tech or whatnot, right? These are all sectors where you have defined playbooks over multiple years in the past, right? So many companies where you have headquarters outside India in countries where you get better access to capital, have back offices, working teams in India, makes the economics work out, and that's how people have operated. But examples are there for like that, doing the same thing in space. But what stops any other country in the world, wherever the headquarters are, to simply say that, hey, you know what, these geopolitics don't make sense to us, and therefore we are not friendly anymore, right? We're in a very turbid state globally right now. And if we don't have that capability with full control in-house, we're always at the mercy of someone, right? No matter how much you try and bind relationships, but that's a risk you have. So one thing that we've been very mindful of is to remain an Indian headquartered company and build for the country, right? We are not stepping out with saying that, you know what, you go get headquartered somewhere just because you have better access to capital. There are FDI norms that have been released, so foreign investors can come in and invest in Indian companies. So it's not a regulatory problem. It's a mindset problem of looking at a sector, seeing proven cases and applying those playbooks. With space, we need to clearly demarcate. We need to have an edge, right? And being Indian headquartered is important, right? Otherwise, think of the current incident that we're living through, right? The attack in Pahalgam, the strikes that we just did, Operation Sindoor, all of these, all proof that you see in the media right now is all satellite images, right? Of course, you can't have people being there capturing images. So you need satellite data. And if you as a defense force do not have access to your own proprietary space infrastructure, being at the mercy of someone in such critical situations is very risky, right? And that's something that we have to avoid.
And we've all these years, say much before the private tech startups also came up, we have been having this data, right? The satellite domain.
So space has been a focus, right? ISRO, a lot of the satellites that ISRO has built have been for the military use, right? And that's never been a question. But now that it's coming to the private sector, we shouldn't lose that sanctity. Right now, it was an unsaid rule that what ISRO is building remains in the country, right? When we begin to get to business and economics, losing that sanctity is a potential risk.
And that's not a norm yet, is it? Like where if it's an Indian space tech startup, you're
not a norm. In fact, a lot of the let's say grants, procurement policies, all of these things are yet to account for things like these. Because, and in all honesty, right, this was not a situation 5 years back. So policies didn't have to account for this difference. But today you do, right? And that change has to come in. And that's something that that we speak of often in a lot of forums as well. And it's not in our vested interest. It's something that as a country we should be mindful of.
So I'll give you some examples, right? Critical technologies, why it has to be developed in India. It has to be designed and developed in India. India, at one point of time when it was in war with Pakistan or when it was fighting terrorism, it was denied GPS.
Yeah.
It was denied synthetic aperture radar imagery when we are at war or we are fighting terrorism, right? And why it was done? Because we are dependent on other countries for their data. And we got denied of that, right? How do you make sure this does not happen tomorrow? It is only if you have companies who are in India, who are headquartered in India, who are designing for India as well. And it cannot be that you are just going to take up some hardware from outside or take some services from outside and just provide it to our national security, right? You have to design things from scratch for those national securities. Otherwise, you will always have some dependency and you will go into these kind of troubles. The geopolitics today, if you see, you have to take a stand that, okay, these are my critical technologies. I will develop it on my own. And maybe for other non-critical technologies, I will still rely on you because I want to have good relations with other countries. But everyone understands the, national security cause. And for that purpose, you always have to, build in India. For example, one of the critical technologies, synthetic aperture radar, was denied. And what happened eventually was we ended up buying the main payload from Israel and then putting it in our satellite because that was the need of the hour. But then we still managed to make that technology in India, ISRO did that, and then shoot it to space after, right? So you have, and that was done so that we don't fall into that time again where we are denied of that technology, right? And this is something which we are also building from scratch. So I think it's not a question of why we should have it in India. It's pretty clear. It's for the national security. It's just about the question by when we'll have these technologies in.
Got it. So it's building towards a self-reliant.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yes. And I think globally we are among the top countries in the world, right? If we are to become a developed nation, if we are to maintain the superpower position, get to that league, you can't be dependent on someone. And I think we've been solving problems one step at a time, but this is something that we need to be doing.
Got it. Now, speaking about AI, like how big of a role does AI play in Earth observation, satellites, or say space tech in general?
Oh, a lot actually. A lot more than we'd imagine. So at the end of the day, this is still data. So what do our satellites do? These are satellites that go to space, capture high resolution images of any area on the planet and give you that data. When you say data, it's a matrix giving you numbers and it's just visual inference. Imagine being able to access petabytes of data, but not being able to act on it. Right? You can't have 50 people swiping one image at a time and looking at what change has happened. You can't have people sitting in large agriculture companies going farm by farm to see what is the health of the farm. Right? You can't have, let's say, someone in a gas pipeline or a transmission line company monitoring their complete asset to see where damage is happening. All of this is automated using AI. Right? So you take the raw image, and simple computer vision models have always existed. How do you build computer vision models for satellite imagery context? Right? What does that mean? Images are captured top down, right? Most models that we see today that we use on our phones and laptops and whatnot are all front facing. So there are models that are to be built differently. There are science principles that are to be added to meet better accuracies. All of those come in and make life so much easier. So today, imagery data can help you, solve a wide range of use cases thanks to AI being applied. Ranges from simply counting the number of, aircrafts and ships in a scene for defense context and classifying them. If they're a submarine, if they're warrior vessels, if they're fishing boats, right? Those kind of classifications, seamless. To getting into applications like agriculture and predicting yield of hundreds of thousands of acres across the country and the world, which manually would take you months, right? To even being able to get water and soil quality parameters like the pH, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, all of these parameters where you don't have to take samples and travel 5-10 kilometers to go to labs. All of those are AI essentially.
So what I would say is AI is definitely there in geospatial images, but right now it is very use case focused or very sector focused. So you would see AI for a very specific kind of object getting detected in a very specific kind of an image data, right? But it is not generalized. There's no ChatGPT for geospatial data, right? And the core problem is that we don't have enough data, and second, we are also not generating enough consistent data. So if you see, there are many sensors out there who would image a particular object from top to down, and few sensors would image it from at a particular angle, right? And this will create some inconsistencies when you are trying to give both of these two data set to the AI, right? Because there is a perspective change and there are some objects getting changed or things getting changed, right? Which is eventually going to create some trouble for, again, the AI, right? It is also good that there is good amount of changes in every image so that you have many things to be trained on. But you also need some level of consistency in the data so that you can have an AI getting trained on those kind of data, right? So I think these two are a few problems that are still there in this geospatial data. There's not enough consistency in terms of resolution, in terms of the bands that we use. There are many different factors, correct? And I think that's why there is no big AI model like ChatGPT which can be used on geospatial data. But I think as more and more companies are getting into this ecosystem, we would see that explosion in the availability of those data sets. And in coming future, I think those models also will get into the place where one model can serve many different purposes.
Like, it's a dream that we've started to work on, right? We want to have a large foundational model where a user just puts up query in English, standard chat GPT, where you're simply putting up saying, hey, give me information of how many sugarcane fields are present across the country and what is the supply that I see 3 months down the line. Or as an enterprise, give me information about the complete gas pipeline network that I have and how much of it is under risk for vegetation encroachment. These are queries that you should be able to ask, wherein you have access to backend imagery that draws the data, does the analysis, and gives you a report right then and there. Now that's when satellite imagery is part of routine processes in business. Yeah. And that's our vision, right? To be able to build that kind of software, that kind of reliability, where users don't have to think about, oh, this is going to a satellite to get data. Like today, when you use Ubers and Olas and Zeptos and Zomatos of the world, you don't worry about, oh, I'm getting this location because there's a satellite in space that's transferring GPS to it. All you're worried about is say, I want this location and I get it. Right? That level of reliability and that GPS moment is what we want to bring to this ecosystem, right? Where users just worry about, I want this intel, can you bring that to me? And let the tech do its bit. Right? Get the data, do the analysis, and that's something that we've started to work on. And yeah, it's a dream for us to see that happen.
And one of the steps that we have taken towards it is solving for the consistency. That's why we have two of the most prominent sensors for this geospatial domain, synthetic aperture radar and multispectral imager, on the same platform, because that will provide you consistency in the perspective, as well as if you replicate those in numbers, you would get consistency in the quality of the data as well. So I think that is the first step that we have taken in order to solve these issues and provide data sets on top of which we can build those foundation models.
Got it. And GalaxEye, are you looking at, say, defense in particular, agriculture? Like, do you have like priority of where you want to cater to?
Yes, and that's a very valid question, right? Because by nature, this is imagery data, and we are enough equipped to image as much a national border as much an agriculture field. Our focus areas have been largely 2 or 3 sectors. Right? First, national defense, of course. Second, agriculture. And third is the whole climate change. The reason we're doing that is these are the top 3 sectors that are actually the most troubled because of clouds and lack of availability. Defense, you will not get information if it's a cloudy weather. A lot of defense activities happen in low light conditions. Agriculture, your monsoon season is all gone. Climate change, all the disasters you see, floods, hurricanes, cyclones and whatnot, you don't have clear skies. And if you don't have clear skies, traditional imaging sensors, which are basically just cameras, right? Like how you have your mobile phones out of an airplane capturing a photo, you will not see anything but the blanket of clouds, right? And that's the problem that we're solving for. So these are the top 3 troubled sectors where consistency hits or impact the decision that the end user makes, right? So these are sectors we're solving for. In fact, very recently, a few months ago, we had the opportunity to be on the podcast, right, with the Honorable Prime Minister on Mann Ki Baat. So we were discussing about exactly the same thing of, what are the sectors that you can actually solve and make an impact on. And when we told him this, he very sweetly put it in a line. And his statement said, तो अब जय जवान भी करेंगे और जय किसान भी करेंगे, right? And that summarizes what we can do. So while we're focused on these sectors, of course, we're also taking efforts to partner with relevant people and be able to impact how loans and banking sectors operate, be able to impact how utility infrastructure is monitored. So I think use cases are widespread, but these are some priority areas that we think are dying to get this kind of solutions, and that's what we're focused on.
And if you see in the 3 sectors what Pranit mentioned, 2 of these sectors would need information in near real time. Just when something has happened, you would want to know exactly what has happened, right? In national security and in terms of climate based disasters, right? And that's why what we are building is we are building a constellation of satellites so that we are able to revisit any point on the ground in less than 2 hours or an hour, and we are able to revisit that point so that we know what has changed in that particular location. What that requires is a highly agile satellite which can be tasked to look at different location at different point of time, right? And a constellation of it so that even if one satellite has skipped it, second satellite can come and see it, right? So, and we are also developing on solutions like edge computing in space, which has not been done before. And what it helps you is process all the imageries in the space, in the satellite itself, and just beam down the information. Because at the end, when there is a disaster-based disaster which has happened because of any hurricane or floods or anything, what you need to see is not only the image, but an information of how much damage has happened or where the damage is being there or getting localized, right? So you need that kind of information very quickly. And that's why edge computing is also very much required, right? So we have now started investing in all of those technologies. We are investing in making a constellation of satellites as well, and particularly high resolution, because in all of these sectors, we would need the size of the objects or the objects which are of our concern would be actually very small. If it is a truck that you want to see, You cannot have a 5-meter resolution because there would be 2 or 3 trucks inside that cell, right? And that's just a pixel. You won't be able to differentiate. What you need is a 30 centimeter resolution, which can differentiate between 2 trucks. So all of those things are required, and so that's why we are more into high resolution, a bigger constellation, and providing information in real time.
Let's talk about the challenges. What do you think are the challenges as a private player in a space tech ecosystem?
Interesting. I mean, being entrepreneurs has its fun and challenges. But I think as a space player, one of the biggest challenges that we've been mitigating is the whole talent ecosystem. If you think about space in India, it's only ISRO. Right? And if not for a written rule, it's just that once you're in ISRO through your retirement. Right? That's the nature. So you either get people who want to get into ISRO or people who are stepping out of ISRO through retirement. And neither of them are fit to work in a startup-like culture. So getting that skill, right? But at the same time, being in this kind of an environment, right? Getting that mix has been a challenge early on. Right? We've been able to mitigate that fairly well. Of course, over 2-3 years now, things have changed. There are a lot of space-specific streams. Institutes like IIST, so Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, have gathered more attention. So things have changed, but that's been one of the broadest problems that the private industry as such has had, right? Because there is no ready talent. Someone has to come in, you need to be patient for them to learn the hard skill, come in and then be able to implement and scale. So the way we do it, for instance, is we have a lot of freshers in the team or early experienced people and tie them up with very senior advisors. So we have a very wide advisory board, very senior ex-ISRO DRDO scientists, includes people that build the first satellites in ISRO, includes people that have built the most complex pipelines that have been untouched for years, right? That's the kind of advisors that we have. And early graduates, minimal experience folks who have that hunger to get in and build a career in space. So with an average age of about 25, 26 and very senior advisors, that mix has worked well. And as that matures, we're now seeing talent to flow in, the interest to be there a lot more. And yeah, that's, I think, the upfront fundamental problem we've seen. Anything else?
Definitely. So apart from talent, when we were starting up, there were few challenges of, so when we started in 2021, it was a time when the regulatory body was just coming up. It had not come in, right? So there was, of course, a challenge of being a deep tech company. You would have some challenges of getting funds, getting good investors on board, right? And after our Series 8, in our Series 8 has gone away, but definitely we faced that kind of a challenge. We have also faced challenges in terms of regulations. One of our prototype, we couldn't test it on a platform simply because there is no regulation to do that in India. There is no regulation for a private player to do a research on a particular kind of platform in India. And since you're working in critical tech, you cannot also go outside India and do it. So those kind of challenges are there because this has been happening for the first time in India, right? So definitely we have those challenges, and few things which are very fun challenges, and we love to tackle those challenges, right? Something like, so nobody in India has a playbook of developing these things from scratch, right? So if somebody new who wants to develop a quick commerce startup or a fintech startup, he actually has a playbook. He do this step. Deep tech does not have it, correct? Nobody in India was focused on designing systems as a whole and solutions as a whole till now, right? Private players were more into supporting DRDO and ISRO, right? But now it has been coming up. So we don't have that playbook. So we always start from scratch in these things. But it is always fun, right? We always wanted to do this. So I love this challenge. But yeah, so we face both kind of challenges. Some regulatory, which are now getting into place because since we have faced it, we have brought it into the eyes of various key persons, and now they are working towards removing it for us, for the newer generation that is coming up. But yeah, these are the common challenges that you would hear from every deep tech guy in India.
And how crucial is it to get government support or government backing when you guys are scaling and expanding, especially in space tech?
I think it goes without saying, because if that's not there, you can't move a needle. Right? As regulated as this has to be, from the kind of frequencies you use for your tech to where are you launching from, where is all the critical component being built, do you have enough security access for the people moving in, moving out, for the team? All of these are very fundamental things that you wouldn't think of if you were in any other sector. But that regulatory constraint is important, like how we were discussing earlier. It's a strategic sector. And of course, the government has also been learning with us because, like he said, it's not a playbook to playbook game. Thanks to bodies like InSpace that have come in. So for the context, InSpace stands for Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, which currently chaired by Dr. Pawan Goenka. Right? It's an authorizer, regulator, and a promotion body for all sorts of non-ISRO space activities in the country. And they've been at it to seamlessly bring out processes and set up, what should an entity be doing to easily get to do business, right? And that has gotten better and better. So as regulatory as it has to be, I think the government has also taken initiatives to make it easy, which has been a major complaint all along, because we as a startup can't get stuck in regulatory processes, and that's just beating innovation. Right?
And also from an infrastructure point of view, right? So for a deep tech company, we cannot just rely on computers and cloud infrastructure, right? We need much more than that. We need instruments, lab instruments to test out our hardwares. We need specialized chambers in which we can put those hardwares for testing, right? So there's a lot of heavy infrastructure which is required to develop these hardwares. And being a startup, you cannot have that much amount of capital to just invest in the infrastructure, because you have to build these solutions as well. So I think, and all of this infrastructure also is from a national point of view, right? Nation's point of view, where at some point of time it can be, it is like an infrastructure for the whole country. So when you have a deep tech startup, when they are developing an infrastructure, it's not just about that company, it is from a country's interest also, right? And from that perspective, there has to be some grants and support from the government to build this infrastructure. And that's why it is, I would say it is highly required, because again, it's not a simple cloud infrastructure that you can just rely on. It's more than that. It's lab instruments, which one instrument would come in 1.5 to 2 crore, just one instrument, and you cannot live with just one instrument, right? You need to have 3-4 of them. You need many other things. You need anechoic chambers. You need, for just to handle our satellite, which is around 150 to 200 kg class. You cannot just have a forklift. You need an overhead crane to handle it from time to time. So it requires a very good amount of heavy infrastructure. So we would need a government support to do that.
Right. And you've seen or witnessed that the support has been always on a progressive path, right? Over the last few years, or like how supportive they are.
Yes, and that is purely because of InSpace coming in and easing that out, right? Because I'll give you a classic example. As let's say, as a space startup, we had to do aerial tests. Now, when you want to do aerial tests to build some form of a conviction on a tech that you're doing, you would naturally think to get an approval from DGCA. You go speak to someone in DGCA saying that, hey, I have a space grade equipment payload that I have a prototype of, and I want to be testing it here. They don't have SOPs to be doing it. Right? There has to be someone to understand the requirement, be able to translate it. And of course, not every industry requirement can translate to a government procedure. That's of course understood. But how do you mediate and get that through? Right? Other aspects like if you want to, let's say, communicate with your satellite in certain frequencies, there are licenses that need to be procured at an international level. Now, going to simple government department officials and saying, I want this, they don't know what to do. They've never done this before because the country's never had to do it. But how do you then either add processes or mediate or set up separate bodies to be doing it? All that dynamics is something that have consciously been worked on. And things have become much easier than where it were before. It's an evolving journey, right? And thankfully, because we're in that 0 to 1, so all of us are learning with each other.
So ISRO would have a small department who would take care of all the certifications, international certifications. But nobody, no private company in India was doing it, right? So there's no government body to facilitate that for a private customer. It is, of course, there with the PSUs and government institutions for their own, usage, but not for the private industries. But now I think government is coming up with those kind of bodies to help private companies as the private ecosystem is becoming bigger and bigger.
All right, that's wonderful. So, which brings me to the next point. I think last year you had a chance to speak to Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Mann Ki Baat, and that was on National Space Day, if I'm right. So, how was that experience? How did that happen, and how did you feel after that?
So, when you are in an ecosystem where it is new and not everyone is, building from India, and then you are somebody who is building from India, and then there is a lot of chatter around why are you doing it, why are you not choosing a easier path, and then you get a validation from the Prime Minister itself. You get that boost, you get that confidence of why I have to build it from India. I think that was the biggest motivation for all of us from at a founder level. But also at the team level, when they see their company getting recognized at that national stage, their confidence also goes up because now they feel that this is a very credible place where they are going and working on, right? So I think that is one of the biggest boost that we can get for all of us in GalaxEye.
So I'll tell you one incident that happened, and as soon as the episode was live and everything happened, 30 minutes into that, I received an anonymous call. And this was some lady speaking to me, if I recollect correctly, somewhere from UP. And she mentioned, hey, it was a Sunday morning. So we were just switching channels and we just saw that there was something around Mann Ki Baat that was going around and somebody spoke of space. And we were casually having our breakfast. I have a daughter who's in class 11 who's fascinated by space. So we just happened to tune in. Throughout the call, they didn't move an inch. Right? They were so stuck to just understand what was happening and gave me a call just because their daughter wanted to commit to us and say that, hey, after seeing your episode, I am sure I'm going to come work in the space sector. And then the conversation went into, can I come work for GalaxEye right now? Right? So when moments like these where you impact, I don't even know who the person is. Right? But a random call coming in saying, I'm in class 11. I heard, saw, read about this. And now I want to build for space.
It's very motivating for people.
Right, you're no longer dreaming to become a cricketer. You're no longer dreaming to become an actor. You're dreaming to build, and that's what's motivating.
This is the kind of impact I think these incidents bring in, right? Like your even awareness you're bringing out to the people who probably don't know how to get into this or such a sector is viable. Yeah. That's very interesting. So moving on to, you're working with Elon Musk SpaceX in collaboration to launch your multi-sensor satellite. Can you talk about that? Like what that is? It's Project Drishti, right? If I'm correct? Yeah.
So Drishti is our first satellite. We call it Mission Drishti. And it is, as I was saying, it is a very unique satellite where we have two different kind of sensors on the same platform, a multispectral imager and a synthetic aperture radar. It is a high resolution satellite in the sense that we are going around 1 to 1.5 meter resolution in our first satellite. And it's a pretty big satellite. So if to give you some perspective, the satellite would weigh anywhere around 150 to 200 kg. So, and this kind of satellite by a private entity is being built first time in India. It is huge in size. So our antenna for this synthetic aperture radar is around 3.5 meters in length that will get unfolded in space. So this satellite will have all those critical elements in place, and this satellite is again going to be launched this year in October 1st, and which will be our first satellite, and it will cater to all those use cases that we were talking about the climate based this thing and defense, national securities. It will cater to all of those use cases.
Okay. Now that the satellite is being built, launching it to space, there are a bunch of rocket companies that exist. Of course, ISRO has its own launch vehicle. SpaceX, the most prominent one internationally. So we're launching with SpaceX in October. And I think SpaceX coming in is like a full circle for our life. Right? It all started
with the
back with Hyperloop visiting SpaceX, and now it's going back launching our own satellite. So, yeah, that's what it is.
So how do you choose who would take the load to build out there? Why SpaceX? Why not say ISRO or something like that? Is there any criteria?
It's not anything from a political or any other standpoint of view. It is pure technical and operational point of view. We have our own timelines of developing these satellites, and we would look for a launch vehicle which is going to get launched near around that time, which can support our class of satellites as well. Definitely PSLV can do that as well, and we were in touch with ISRO to have that happen. But again, from a launch date perspective and other things, we could not go with PSLV. And SpaceX has a very good option of putting our kind of satellite into that vehicle. So it's mostly from a technical and operational standpoint of view.
Got it. And you met Elon Musk. Would you aspire to meet him?
We have.
I think he would be more busy with Starship, so I'm not sure. But definitely we would love to meet him again.
So he's an inspiration. How do you look at, I know you spoke about how you started with that competition, but so how impactful are players like these?
I think it's, if I were to tell it in 3 words, it's just the mad scientist vibes, right? Where you're not feared to pick difficult problems that people think are impossible to solve, right? Like when he built reusable rockets, nobody in the world almost agreed to say, oh, this is possible and you should do it, right? But now that he's done it, there are 10 other companies that are saying, oh, I want to do it but cheaper, right? It's easier to optimize on what exists, but disruption, that's something that very few companies in the world have actually been able to pull off. And I think a lot of Elon's companies have done that. And that's a principle that we've imbibed into GalaxEye as well, right? We don't want to do anything that exists plus alpha. That's not the mindset. That's not the grind that we're here for, right? We're all about disruption. Multi-sensor satellites, they've never existed in the world before. We're the first company in the world to be doing that. To have agencies from across the world come visit here in Bangalore to see how are we doing it and why is it that nobody else had thought of this before. Right? It's just about asking the difficult questions and not just assuming anything at the face value. And that's the motivation that people like these bring in, to say it's okay to take difficult problem statements. And there's no guarantee you'd succeed, and that's okay. Right? But you take the guts to solve it.
Definitely. So as Pranit is mentioning, we definitely take inspiration from this kind of a person who believes in disruption. But we also take inspiration from many other places as well. Like ISRO has been also one of our great inspirations, right? Because whatever ISRO did was building it again from scratch, even though and for national security purposes, and building infrastructure for India, right? And that is the second kind of inspiration that we look from ISRO. And so on, we would look for other kind of inspiration from other people as well. But with Elon, we definitely look how he has disrupted this whole ecosystem, and his kind of a person who has taken the development of rocket. He has brought in that technology of reusable launch vehicles in a very commercial manner, right? So we definitely look up to him. We do look up to a lot of other people as well in India, also ISRO and other institutions.
Got it. And you mentioned multi-sensor satellite. You are you are the only player right now who's doing it. So that means the competition is also not there at the moment. Like, you have competing players who are offering similar things.
So satellite imagery as a tech has existed for decades, right? And not just by government agencies, but there have been private players, like the oldest ones, Maxar, which has been into imagery data from early 90s. Now, satellite imagery as a technology has mostly been restricted to particular kind of sensors, right? How it all started was putting up traditional cameras in space, just more qualified. Right? Imagine having fancy mobile phone cameras put up on satellites that still capture images. Then we realized we need finer data. We need more information that even human eyes can't see. So we started getting into infrared, ultraviolet kind of spectra, where human eyes didn't get information, but sensors give us a lot more. Then we realized, okay, all of this is still in the visible spectrum that can't see through clouds. So you need information that can penetrate through clouds and give you consistency, which is where we started putting in radars into space. So it's called synthetic aperture radar, which is the equivalent of having X-rays that can penetrate through your skin. Right? So we started as an industry evolving to have one sensor at a time. But as an end user, today you say there is a sensor that you can see and understand, which is a normal camera, because that's how human eyes see things. So it is intuitive, but not available, right? Clouds cover Earth 70% of the time. And that's something that's always taken for granted, that you'd get imagery. But the fact is you don't, right? On the other hand, synthetic aperture radar data, it is 100% available because it can penetrate through smoke, clouds, fog and whatnot. But it's not intuitive, like how you need radiologists for X-rays and CT scans. What we are doing is solving a problem for the end users where they don't have to pick between intuitiveness and availability. We are putting both of these sensors on the same platform, wherein you're guaranteed availability and in an intuitive manner. So that architecture is something that nobody in the world has built before. So while competition has existed, we're solving for fundamental problems like consistency, reliability that a lot of these end users face. We're not saying somebody built a camera at 1 meter resolution and we'll build it for 50 centimeter. That's not the tech.
Good. And speaking about Aishkar Hyperloop, let's just go back. You guys had started it, right? The mission that you want to have like a Hyperloop and everything. And now it's 8 years since that whole project has started. And I think every batch is kind of taking up and leading it. So what has been the impact so far? And do you think Hyperloop would be a viable solution in the future, a mode of transport? Or how far are we from achieving that?
It will be. I don't know how far we are, but it's certainly taken a leap. Right? So from when we started to even like put a plan on paper, to just bring 5 people together to say, let's at least build a prototype, to now we have an infrastructure of about 422 meters long inside the IIT Madras campus. That's the largest Hyperloop testing facility in the world. We are hosting international competitions for tech development. These projects are being funded not only by large private sectors. So we have like the Tatas and L&Ts and other conglomerates funding this project, but Indian Railways themselves. Right? So Honorable Minister Ashwini Vaishnav has himself been to the campus a few times just to interact with the team and spend half a day with them. Right. So we are seeing that revolution come in, interest top down to say that this is a tech that we want to build in-house. And naturally, I think railways is, of course, for us, one of the most efficient systems globally, and very efficiently placed to step up and build tech like Hyperloop. So that's happening. Maybe half a decade, maybe a decade, as long as we see the level of comfort and economics to work out. But I think as a dream for us when we started, for us it was about, can we keep tech growing, and we don't know when it'll see commercial light, right? But the fact that it's even panned out for 8 generations is, I think, a big satisfaction for us.
No, definitely. I think at this point of time, India is the only country who is believing in Hyperloop tech, and it is also one of the futuristic tech. In my understanding, it is going to be one of the modes of transportation for people, but as well as it will be also used for logistics. And in that way, I think India will lead the charge in developing and realizing this technology for the world. So, and right now we are already seeing early signs of it with all the bright minds of IIT Madras working on bringing this tech into reality. They have already worked on building India's first linear induction motor, which is one of the critical techs for Hyperloop. They are working on levitation. They are working on magnetic braking and all those things, right? So I think, we are taking that charge for the world.
Which brings me to the next question. So IIT Madras has been incubating a lot of deep tech startups. I think in last year alone, over 100 startups, and in the last 10, 12 years, 400 odd startups. So what are they getting right about fostering innovation and, kind of encouraging deep tech in India?
I think at least as beneficiaries, 2 things that have nurtured us a lot, and there could be a lot more, of course, but 2 things that have played a very crucial role. Number 1 is there is innovation at every layer. So while there are simple academic labs that all institutions have, right? All departments end up having these engineering labs, so on. There are student-run bodies. So there's something called as the Center for Innovation, now renamed as, I think, Sudan Shankar Innovation Hub, where its tagline is walk in with an idea, walk out with a product, right? You just have a bunch of students walk in and say, I want to build this, and you'll find everything. From a simple screwdriver kit to a fancy CNC machine, you'd find it all there, free open access, do whatever you want, build whatever you want. And that's where Aishkar started, right? When we built Hyperloop, that was the place. That's where Aether Energy, that's where Detect, Planis, n number of such tech companies that today we hear about, that's where it all began, right? That's one. So student innovation, then being backed by pre-incubators. They have something called a Nirman, wherein it's a pre-incubation, where they just give you a couple of lakhs as grant and enable you with, refining your idea, having advisor reviews and so on. Then you have the incubation cell, then you have the investment community. So at every stage, you have people to back you, right? I think that's a journey that you can take with IIT Madras, which we've been through. So that shapes up thought process one step at a time. And second is, it's not pure research. You talk to professors there, you'll know that business angle is there in their heads. They're not researching to put up publications or get patents. They're researching on industrial problems. They're researching on actual on-field problem statements, which means your classes, the students, as we learn, it's always there. You pitch an idea to a professor, they're saying, what are the economics of it? They're not saying you can do this 0.5x better, right? That, I think it's just there in the DNA. That's what I think we've benefited the most of.
Correct. And if you see, IIT Madras has been one of the top research institutions in India, engineering research institutes in India, right? And it all makes sense to have the biggest incubation center right there, because that's how you converge your research to a product, right? So I think this channel of having an IIT Madras where you have professors working on top-notch research and then incubation centers where there are companies who can take on this research and convert it into a product. I think it's one of the best channels, and it should be replicated in other IITs as well, which we see already happening in Bombay, Kanpur, Guwahati.
Got it. So, but in India, if you're taking, would you say IIT Madras is the best for creating a deep tech startup?
It's the biggest and the best right now.
Okay, perfect. And so to understand the student mindset, nowadays, graduates from India's elite engineering colleges, do they prefer to build solutions for India, or do they still have the traditional mindset of, let me go abroad and, make it big there? Do you see a shift from how it has been before?
I am personally seeing that shift happening, right? A lot of people are no longer... Okay, when we had our seniors, when we used to talk to them, the standard procedure was, hey, you graduate from here, apply for a GRE or a GMAT, go out for masters, figure out what you want to do then, right? Now it's not like that. Now the inquiries we get, the conversations we have are more of, hey, I have this idea, do you want to hear me out? Can you connect me to someone who can validate this? And that's also because the kind of junior senior interactions happening right now are in a very different direction. The professors now are not pushing for, oh, you finish a bachelor's, now go to a master's and do this and do that. Right? I think that shift has come through, and people are now also very, very open, right? It's in fact probably going a little more extra than needed also. Everybody sitting in classes saying, I want to build something of myself, right? Without really understanding the nitty-gritties. So it also needs its own guardrails, but that shift is happening certainly.
And it's not only that they are here to build for India, that is one of the biggest points. Yeah. But it's not like they are building for India by just copying what has happened in the West, like our neighbor does, right? They are more innovative in that sense that they want to solve for problems which are very specific to India and being very innovative about it, right? Like what GalaxEye is doing, it is not just saying that we want to build another SAR for India or the best resolution SAR for India. We want to be innovative in the sense that we want to fuse these two technologies because that can bring changes in terms of adopting this kind of geospatial data to more number of users. For the India, definitely, but for the whole world as well. So I think for people who are coming out and developing these things, it is not only to build for India, but to build in India, for India, but for the world as well. So that's how I think it is different in India.
Got it. And just one last question so what is the vision that you have for GalaxEye in the next 5 years? You can talk about the expansion plans, anything.
For us, it's about how we solve a very fundamental problem in the ecosystem and bring the GPS moment. When GPS came in early 2000s, today it sits in our mobile phones. We have hundreds of applications that run on it, and as consumers, we're not worried about tech because it's dependable tech. We want to get that narrative out that you have a dependable source of satellite imagery. You don't have to worry about whether it's a synthetic aperture radar, whether it's a multispectral, whether it's a hyperspectral or whatnot. You don't have to worry about whether it's a 50 kg satellite, 100 kg satellite, whatever it be. Right? All you worry is when you need an imagery data, you get it. Right? And 5 years down the line, we see ourselves with a constellation of satellites that can give you data the day you need it, that can give you data the way you need it, right? And solve for the problem that you want it to. Right? So that's where we are. And yeah, you can.
Yeah, so I will just add to Pranit. For the next 5 years, we are very focused in our vision. We have always been focused in our vision of creating this kind of data set. You would see that in the first 4 years we are going to launch our first satellite as well for that purpose, and in next 5 years we are going to expand it to a much bigger constellation. We would be coming out with more number of AI and software products which are built on top of these images. We are going to, we are also developing our own hardwares designed from scratch and putting it on the satellite. So very focused on developing this kind of data products for the next 5 years. And we are already expanding. So we started from a very small 200 square feet office when we started in 2021. And right now we are going more and more in numbers as well. Five of us started this company. Now we are 100 people right now. Maybe going to be a much bigger company by the end of next 5 years. So that's how we are going about it.
And anything on campus expansion that you can talk about?
Yes. So today we're here with roughly about a 4,000 to 5,000 square feet facility, largely with a prototyping lab and a design house. We are scaling to have our own manufacturing assembly setup in place. So we are expanding to a 50,000 plus square feet facility, and that will have top of the class clean rooms. That will have facilities where you can assemble 2 large satellites at a time, and enough testing equipment to qualify and be able to build that kind of innovative tech. So we're yet to name the facility, otherwise I would have told that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's something that we are building, and we'll be shifting in a couple of months. So that's happening already.
Sounds very exciting, very interesting. We're going to be looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Pranit and Denill. This has been very, very insightful.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you
glad.
so much.
GalaxEye isn't just building satellites. They're building conviction in India's ability to lead in deep tech. From defense to disasters, from AI to aerospace, this is the kind of disruption we need more of. Thanks for tuning into Point Break. I'm Vandana Nair. I'll see you next week with more insights and discussions. Until then, stay sharp, stay curious, and think AI, think AIM.